Hello, everyone. A very good morning to all of you who have joined for the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm starting a few seconds early because I hope by the time it is exactly 11 o'clock, the live starts for you guys out there. Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for joining. Today, at the moment, we will be discussing majorly about the concept of phases, and then we will also look at the recast function, and we will try to create or recreate the grandMA2 phases or grandMA2 effects in grandMA3's phases. Yes, can hear you. All good. That's great. So let's go ahead and start. The first thing that we will look at is the concept of phasors. I believe that the phases concept is actually pretty straightforward. Why would I say this? Because if you take a look at the way it works, let's take some fixtures. Let's build a basic phasor. So if I select some fixtures and set the dimmer to 100% intensity. So what you will notice is that you set a value for your fixtures, and this value is always at step one. So you are always at some step. Now, if I go to the next step, and if I say 0, you are then immediately able to create a simple phasor, or let's say a dynamic value, which is going from 100% to 0%. So step 1, my value is 100, and then step 2, my value is 0. So this is the simplest phasor. Now, I also need to mention that there are different ways that you can create phases. The first way is, of course, from the attribute layer. The second way is from the phasor editor. And the third way is the step creator. So there are many tools to create phases. So let's create again other phasor. So if I select these fixtures and I say full, by the way, I have some macros here. This macro is full. So I select my fixtures and set them to full. And I go to the next step and I put the values to 0. So let's try to deal with this from the attribute layer so we can make sure that we touch every element that creates phases. So first of all, I am giving some absolute values. So they're going from 100% to 0. And then I have the phase. So here, phase, it says 60 BPM. What does this mean? Is to go from step 1 to step 2. This means to go from 100% to 0, it's going to take, or 60 BPM is equivalent to 1 second. So to go from 100 to 0, it will take 1 second. And to go from 0 again back to 100, it will take another 1 second. So this is what 60 BPM would mean. So if I change it to 120, you will see that it increases speed. So I'll come back to 60. And then we have phase. This is an interesting topic. So what, or the way I like to explain phase is like this. So if you take a look at all my fixtures, they're all going from 100 to 0 all at the same time. Now let's try to change the phase to maybe 180, and let's see if we can notice some difference. Well, actually, you don't see any difference because, again, you can see that all the fixtures are going from 100 to 0 at the same time. Let's change it to 360 and let's see if we can notice some difference. Again, you see there is no difference because all the fixtures are again going from 100 to 0 at the same time. So there would be no difference if all the fixtures have the same phase, meaning what is a phase is the timing. So all the fixtures are following the same timing. Let's try to change the phase of one of the fixtures. Let me put it back to 0, which is the default value. And let's change the phase for one of the fixtures to be, I don't know, let's try something like 10. So now you can, although not easily, you can somewhat notice the difference in the first fixture. Let's make it more evident by changing the phase to maybe 90. So you can see more clearly now that there's difference in the timing of just the first fixture. I select all the fixtures. My 2 through 9, 2 through 10 are in the same timing, and my first fixture has a different timing. Let's try something different. Let's try to assign each fixture a different phase. So let's keep the first one as it is, or let's change the first one to the phase 0, and the second one 90, and the third one to 180, and the fourth one to 70. Now you can see that there is some form of a sine wave in the first four fixtures, because the phase for the first four fixtures and the rest of the fixtures is different. Let's try to give every fixture a different phase. I can do that by saying 0 through 90. This means every fixture has a different phase, which means every fixture has a different timing. So let's take a look at this. You can clearly see the difference. Let's try to do 0 through 360. Now the change difference is very evident. So this is what phase means. Phase means to have a different timing, or phase defines the timing. In other words, to have a better understanding, I can also say phase defines the timing as well as the value at which it should start. So let me put the phase back to 0, and let's move to the transition. So what this transition is, so you have step 1 and step 2. So step 1, like you know, the value is, so step 1, you know, the value is 100%. And step 2, the value is 0%. Transition defines how it should go from step 1 to step 2. So which means from 100 to 0, how should it proceed? The transition says is 100%, which means as possible. So if I were to define the transition as 0 for step 1, you will see that when the values are going from step 2 to step 1, they go immediately. Let me put this back to 100 now, and let's go. Let's change the phase of the transition of step 2 to 0. So no, so when they go from 100%, step 1, step 2, they go immediately. So there is no transition. One thing important to notice here is that Clint, thank you so much for responding. Okay, so I presume that the live is working because someone has just reported that the live is not working. Thank you so much, Clint. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, any questions? Just send the messages in the chat box. So I hope so far so good, that we understood what we are talking about so far. Let me just recap. So if I set my fixtures to 100% dimmer, and the next step I put the fixtures to 0, you see that we have a simple phasor going from 100 to 0. Let me see if I can open up a presentation that I've made, a small page references that can probably help to understand this better. So if you can notice, there is this box here that represents this two-step phasor. So the first box represents step 1. So like you see in my step 1, the value goes to 100%. The second box represents step 2, and at the end of step 2, or the step 2, the value is 0. So in the end, we have a phasor, or we have the fixtures going from 0 to 100% and 100% to 0. So step 1 to step 2 and step 2 to step 1. Now, like I said, the speed defines how much time it should take to go from step 1 to step 2 or step 2 to step 1. And when it says 60 BPM, it's 1 second. Keep in mind that the 60 BPM or whatever speed that you set here, this is per step. It's not for the whole step, for the whole phasor, it is per step, to go from one step to the other. Now let me bring back my connectivity software. Um, the next thing that we were discussing was the transition here. So what transition would do is that, like you see, the values take certain timing to move from one step to the other. Now, what transition does is it keeps the timing as it is. So the timing of the whole phasor as it is. This means the phasor would still take 2 seconds to complete. But if I set my transition for step 2 to be 0, what it would then do is to go from 100% to 0. It would not take 1 second. It would drop immediately. So let's try this with the software. So in the step 2, now if I were to set the transition to 0, we'll see that to go from 100 to 0, the transition happens immediately. So this is what transition means. And then we have the width. The width defines the timing as well. So what do I mean? So when I set the transition to 0, you will notice that the pixels stay at value of 0 for 1 second because it has to fulfill the timing of that step. Now, if I were to bring the width down to, let's say, maybe 0, you will notice that there is no timing in step. So the step 2 is supposed to define my fixtures going from 100 to 0. So in that step, there is no timing at all. So they go immediately from 0 to 100% slowly, and then again back immediately 0 to 100%. So this is what width would define. Let's try another example. So I'm going to select my fixtures once again, and again give the value of 100%. And in the next step, I would give the value 0. Let's try something with phase. I'm going to say phase is 0 to 360. And I'm going to give the speed of say 50. Now what I would try is set the transition for both steps. So in order to select both the steps, I will click on this button here, and then I will set the transition for both the steps to 0. So if I were to select just step 2, and if I were to adjust my width to, let's say, 10, or let's do the opposite. I have an oops button over here. So let's set the width to maybe 20. So like you notice, when I set the width 20%, what happens is 2 fixtures are in step 1. I'm adjusting the width in step 1. And when I set the width to 20%, this would mean 2 fixtures because I have 10 fixtures. Let's try to make it 25 so it's more smoother. So yeah, this is what width does. Again, if you have any questions, please send messages in the chat box, and I will reply immediately. So yeah, this is the basic concept for the phasors. Let me try to do some position phasors as well. But before I do that, I will create some position presets. I don't think I have, yeah. Let me create some position presets. By the way, here are some tips for you if you want to create some quick position presets in grandMA3. So let's try to do that. So I'm going to select my fixtures and I simple. Let's say I want to create a simple across. So it means the 5 fixtures point this way and these 5 fixtures point this way. The fastest way for me to do this would be to, first of all, let's set some tilt. And I will select the blocks of 5. I have 10 fixtures, and I will set the align and will start my tilt pan. So here's easiest way to create a simple process. One away. So store this here. And then the next thing, so that's a simple cost presets. Another preset can be an X1 preset. So that would go something like this. So I will set my groups to 2. And if I use again this align mode, and if I do this, I have my X1 preset or X2, however you call it. And then this is the next preset. So quickly, I have some easy presets. Like most of you are already familiar by now, we are able to use position or we are able to use presets inside our phases. So let's try to do that. So if I select my fixtures and say my step 1 is this preset, I can go to the next step and I have to use the integrate command. The shortcut key is MA at. This will give you integrate in the command line. Or if you're like me, who's working mostly with the on PC, I created a short macro, or you can also use the now possible shortcut commands. So you can say shift MA and then A. So that will give the integrate command. So you can say shift A or integrate, and then click on this preset. So you can see that the pictures are going from step 1 to step 2. Let's adjust the speed here. So say the speed is 15. Then I can adjust the phase to 0 to 360, and we have a nice phaser. So this is how you use presets inside a phaser. The next thing I would like to discuss is about the recast function. So in order to explain this, I tried to use some images to be able to show this concept of recast. Let me see if I can project my PowerPoint. So how does the recast function work? So let's say we have some preset data. Now the preset data can be anything. So let's take some dimmer. So let's say we created a preset with 100% intensity. So I have a preset with 100% intensity, and I will store this inside a queue. So we know that if I were to change my preset value to 50%, obviously this information is automatically created inside the queues. In fact, this is one of the biggest advantages of having preset. Now the problem is, if I were to have, let's say inside this preset, we also included inside dimmer some position information, some color information, and also some go information. So it's not just dimmer anymore. It's not just one source anymore, but there are multiple attributes. In that case, what happens is console says, I don't know all these values. It would just take the value directly from the dimmer itself. It wouldn't be aware of these new attributes that you use inside the same preset. And then for this to reference the whole preset back again, we use the function recast. So what recast would then do is take the whole values and update it in the queues. And let's see how this works with the with the software. So let's select some fixtures and let's say full, and I'm going to store value and see all presets. The reason I'm using all preset spool is because I want to store more than dimmer here. I want to store some position and also some color information. That's the reason it's easy to use an all preset spool. So now if I were to select this preset, and if I were to store this inside here, let's assign it over here. So you can see that, yeah, it's referencing my preset. Now, if I select these fixtures and add some position value, position data, and if I go ahead and store it inside this all preset, I say merge. What happens is, so you see that I have a queue that has its value coming from my all preset, and I added some more to this all preset. I changed it from just having dimmer to also having position. Now, when I clear everything, what happens is, since I'm running my queue, they go back to dimmer. They don't have my position data. This is because I introduced a new attribute inside this preset that was not really part of this preset when I was storing the queue. So in order to let's say take all the new attributes and force them to be activated in the sequences, we have the new recast function. If I swipe left and I go to edit option, we have what is called as the recast preset. Now, what recast will do is when I click on this, it will take all the new attributes or whatever the values, whatever the attributes and their respective values, would take them and it would store them in all the sequences and all the queues. That is probably sometimes not the best. Let's give this a try first so we can see how this works. So, like you see now, when I trigger my queue, my sequence, it now remembers or it now takes care of both dimmer and position data. Let me, few steps, or I recast. So now I oops backed. So it has now both dimmer and position, but that is not being casted into the queues. Now, like I said, if I were to say recast preset, what happens is this value is recasted on every all the queues and all the sequences. Sometimes maybe you want to recast it only to certain queues and certain sequences. In this case, what you can do is you can say recast. So you can say recast preset 21.50 if one sequence 5. So when I do this, this would recast only on that particular sequence. To see this more evidently, let's try to copy this sequence. So this here, let's assign this one over here. So I will type the same command again. So recast preset 21.15 if. So if is the key here. That's the one that says to recast it only on certain queues or sequences. So I say recast preset if one sequence 5. So obviously it's recasted here, but it's not recasted here, and of course also not here. Now, if I want to recast it everywhere, obviously, like I will come here and I will say recast preset. So this would recast everywhere. Yeah, let's see if there are any questions so far. No questions. So I hope that is clear about recast and about the phases concept. The next thing, or if you have any questions, please shoot them in the questions box or in the chat box. If not, then I will move on to the to recreating. Oh, yeah, that's the next topic, to recreate the grandMA3 effects with grandMA3. Please keep in mind that I won't be able to do all the effects. That is 31 effects in grandMA2. Let's take a look at grandMA2 software. So yeah, there are 31 inbuilt effects. It makes no sense all of them, but we can cover some of them in this webinar and maybe some more of them in the next webinar. So I think there are not any questions, and we move to the next topic. So recreating the grandMA2 built-in effects in grandMA3 as phasers. So before I touch this topic, let's not forget about the built-in grandMA3 phasers. So we have these built-in phasers in grandMA3. You can get them by using the macro. So there is already a macro. So if I right-click on an empty macro, and if I say import, over here you can say predefined. Yeah, you can say import predefined phaser. So this is macro, and when you click on this macro, this will then import all the phasers for you. So I don't need it now because I've already imported them. So let's try to recreate some basic effects. For example, the dimmer effects. You can try to use the same these phasers. So if I say dim sinus, so it creates this dim sinus. What is missing at the moment is the phasers, the phase, sorry. So you can just give the phase from here, 0 to 360, and you can see a dim sinus effect. We also have a new snap-on effect. This is basically like a ramp up. And then we have the opposite of this. This is like a ramp down effect. And then we have the chase. And of course, for all of these, you can define the phase over here, 60, and you have like this. Let's create a simple even odd effect, even odd phaser. So if I switch this and say full, and the next step. By the way, for me, the easiest way to create a simple even odd or edema phaser would be to use the step creator, because like you see, if I select the fixtures, all I have to do is just create, and it automatically creates a simple phase for me. Now, obviously, this is not what I want. I want to create an even odd. So for this, what I can do is just select these fixtures. I go to a matrix and I use groups of 2, and then in the step creator, if I were to say create, and it creates a quick even odd phaser. So the steps are just select the fixture and give access 2, and then just say create on the step creator. So this creates a very quick dim even odd phaser. In the similar way, pretty much you can also create a PWM effect. You can do this by, again, select my fixtures, and instead of groups as 2, this time I would like to use or. What I can do is I can, in step creator, I can say create first, so it then creates a simple case, and then I just set my width to 50%. Oh, sorry, not case, width. So this is a simple PWM effect. Of course, then I can adjust the transitions, or I can adjust the transition just for step 1, like we were discussing in the beginning. So you can say the transition for step 1 is 100, and you can see a nice effect like this. Let's try to create the circle phaser. I think by this time, all of you should be very familiar already. But if not, we can take a look at it now. So to create a circle phaser, let's select all the fixtures first, and then let's say full, and let's add an absolute point. So what you're seeing here is the pan and tilt axis. So this is my pan, like you see, and this is my tilt axis. So if I were to place my fixtures in this corner for the step 1, and this corner for step 2, and then what I can do is, you see that the value is going from step 1 to step 2. Or I can create a handles by using this option. And when I do this, you get a simple circle effect. More nicer. Sorry, I just got a question. When we talk about phases, a commonly used effect in grandMA2 is relative pan and tilt circle, where you place wings 2 on the tilt and wings -2 on your selection. This will create a nice mirrored circle effect on your selected movers. Okay, how would you recreate that in a simple way in grandMA3? I think yeah, I think we are heading there at the moment. But if not, let me try to recreate what you're trying to tell me. First of all, we have a simple circle phaser. Let me, what I would do is let's bring the speed down to make it more slower. And then first I will sport this over here. By the way, take note that you cannot launch this and update in the current version because we like to limit it just for the views. And here you can, the action has changed. This is explained in the forum as well as release notes. So I have a simple circle effect. Now, if I come to the program phaser editor, what I can do is again make use of my matrix. So if I were to use groups of 2, and if I use the width, the phase here and say 360, you have a nice an even odd circle. I'm not sure if this is what you meant, Franz, but we can try again with the matrix a different combination. So let's try wings of 2, and I try the phase as 360. So we have something like this. Of course, I can select half of my fixtures, let's say the last half, and I can invert the phase for this. So you have something like this. What I can also do is I can say 0 to 360 through 0. So some things like this, it's easier to create from here. But all this starts from my basic phaser. That's doing circles of 0 to 60 through 0. Franz, can you confirm if this is what you're looking for, or let me try this in grandMA3. I can up grandMA2 now, and we will try what you're asking for. So a commonly used effect in grandMA2 is and until I think you mean this one. Wings and 2 on the tilt. Okay, and -2 selection. Not sure if this is what you're asking, but please correct me if I'm wrong. You say wings of -2 here. Okay, I think I understand what you mean. So this is the phaser. So let's try to recreate that in the grandMA3. So okay, so what I can do here is let's create that once again. So is running, and let's adjust the speed first. Um, can start with changing the link value to feature, and then if I change the phase to 0 to 360 to 0, this should, okay. So for these fixtures, I should just invert it. So for my second half of the fixtures, if I were to invert them, so then you have something like this. I think this is what you mean, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, what you're doing in MA2 is correct. Okay, can you please confirm if this is what you mean on MA3? I think this is what I can see on MA2 as well. So again, how I did this is by just selecting the fixtures, and I created a simple phasor. You can use the one that I already created. And then what I did is in the phase, I click the phase and I say 0 to 360. What I can do is I think I can use wings here. Create that wings of 2, and I say 0 through 360. These ones. So oops. So I select my fixtures, I paste them over here, and another one over here, and select all points or the steps and create the handles. Oh, by the way, I forgot to talk about the acceleration, deceleration over here. I will come to it right now in a minute. So I have the circle, and then what I did was you can select the second half of the fixtures, and the first thing that I did is I mirrored the x-axis. So you have a simple phasor like this. And then what you can do is adjust the phase to, let's say, make sure that you are in feature and adjust the phase to 0 to 360. Oops. So, yes, thanks. Yes, that is correct. Perfect. Yes. You're welcome, of course. Again, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A. I will try to answer them as much as possible. If not, if I'm not able to answer any questions, of course, I will find them out and then I will send you, I think, an email of that. So what else can we recreate from grandMA2? We can recreate a dim fly out, which is when, so a dim fly out in my definition is, so you have two steps. Step 1 is here, and at step 2 they are at over here. So step 1 over here at the home position, and step 2 they fly out. And what happens is, as they fly out, the dimmer increases to 100%, and then the fixes start again from a home position to go up. This is a common phasor, a common effect in grandMA2. So the way to recreate them in grandMA3 is like this. So first of all, let's get the basics right. Select our fixtures, and I'm going to keep them in the home position. Same dimmer value should be 0. Just going to activate it, and I'm also going to activate the position attribute. So, and my next step is that they go to 100%. And when you change the value here, you can see the output immediately. And so I want them to go 100%, and I also want them step 2 to go to tilt of 0, since I'm using the readout as percent. So this is what I want them to do. Like you see, they're going from step 1 to step 2. But when they're going from step 2 back to step 1, I want the transition to be 0. So for that, I come here. Oh, no, that is step 1. So I come here and I set the transition to 0. So you can see that or you don't see when they're going down, because then the dimmer is off. What I can do to make it look nicer is, first of all, bring the speed down. So speed is 15. And then I can adjust the phase to 0 through 360, so it looks nicer. So yeah, this is a simple dim fly out. Of course, I can use again my matrix. I can set to groups of 2, perhaps, maybe, and then I use again same phase to 360. So, and then you have something like this. So this is also one of the common effects that are used in grandMA2. Yeah, I don't see many questions, but yeah, guys, if you have any questions, please send them to the Q&A section. I think I can think of other phase, the other effect grandMA2 is the pan. Yeah, how do you? The pan sign effect. We can read. Oh, this is probably the most easiest. Let me select features. So to create a pan sign effect, this is so you just set intensity 100%, and my first value will be over here, or you can even recreate it from the attribute layer. So that's step 1, and step 2 will be 60, maybe 70. Yeah, that's a nice pan sign. Again, I have to adjust my phase. So let's bring the speed down to 15 and set the phase to 0 to 360, and I can create nice line. Again, I can use my groups of 2, maybe looks nicer. Groups of 2, and have something like this. What would you say best way is to fade into and out of this effect in a queue in grandMA3? I assume you're talking about pan sign, or I think you're talking about the dim fly out. And if you're talking about dim fly out, I think you're talking about dim fly out. And the option that we have in grandMA3 is we have something called morph. This is a feature that we are building at the moment. It's on its way, but it is already. You can see all of it's already working. What morph does is it when you're translating from one phase to the other, it gives you a smoother transition. It does. I mean, it doesn't do a straight transition. It gives you a better transition. I was referring to the fly out, so you don't see the snapping. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I know what you mean. So yeah, for this to happen, morph is something that should able to help you, but it's not working at the moment. Able to show you, but to understand morph, I can show you a simple concept concept of morph. So this is how it works. So the way morph works is, for example, like now you see a shape, almost like a circle, almost like a square with smooth ends. When you're going from this shape to another shape, like for example, a square, so this is a normal transition. But what morph does is something like this. So it smoothly allows for the transition to go from one phase to the other phase. So again, to show you Same example. So this is without the morph. Normally you go from here straight to that point, but when you're using morph, it gives you this nice smooth translation into that into the next phase of whatever it is, whether you're using a phase or without using the phase. So I hope this answers your question. I cannot show you. I cannot show you a working demo for this, but yeah, this is the idea to have in the future. One of the nice inputs that that we received from yeah, that's great. Look forward to seeing it. Yes, me as well. So one of the nice questions that we received from one of our distributors is when we sent out this webinar information, one of the topics that they wanted me to talk about was about why we had to invent the concept of phasers. What were the limitations in grandMA2 effects? The limitation in grandMA2 effect is this. It's one of the limitations is that if you look at see if I can share my screen for grandMA2 software. So, so like you see, one of the limitations is that when I was creating an effect, you were limited to, let's say, actually dimmer effect, or let's create something like let's create color effect. Although I have these RG and E parameters, you were limited to two values. Let's say my low value and high value. So this means I can it was not possible to have more than let's say I want to create a two effect that goes from red to blue. This is easy. So if easiest way to do this would be to have some preset references. So if I say color and red, store it over here, and if I use two and I store it over here, oh, I like the next color. But anyway, let's try to do a simple check from this red to blue. So if I were to create this, I set my low value, I set red and blue, and this would create a simple red to blue. That's nice. But how would you create a phaser or an effect that can move from red, blue, and green, or red, blue, and maybe teal, or more than two steps, two values, because you are pretty much limited to just low value and high value. This was one of the biggest limitations we ever had. Yes, there is a way to go around this. That was through tweaking the forms, but so when you create your own form, then you can have you can adjust them in a way that you can see more than two values, but that is definitely the best and easiest way always. So for this reason, we grandMA3. Now let's switch back to the grandMA3 software. For this reason, in grandMA3, have the concept of steps and the possibility to have more than two steps. You can end up, say, the limit at the moment is that you can have up to 65 steps. But yeah, you have up to 65 steps, so you're no longer limited to just steps. So if I were to create simple, and the way to create this is much simpler and much faster in grandMA3. So if I fix this, say full, and I have this red, and then my next step, I want to use, let's say, yellow. Oops, I forgot to set the degree. So that's my step one. And in step two, I want to integrate yellow. And in step three, I want to integrate blue. step 4, I want to integrate magenta, whatever, this doesn't matter. So I can keep doing it as much as I want. And I can, if I were to set a phase, oops. Let's say phase is 0 to 60, then I can see all the colors coming up. So this is much faster and so easy on grandMA3 to be able to have more than 2 steps. So I think the concept of phases is way advanced when you compare it to the effects in grandMA2. Of course, the effects engine in grandMA2 is quite powerful, but I believe that it's grandMA3 it has become even more powerful. The only thing is that it's scattered around at the moment. For example, you can possibility to create phases from attribute layer, the phaser editor, and the step creator. All of this is scattered around at the moment, but in the future, hopefully there will be just one tool from which you can create, like we have it in grandMA2 at the moment. So yeah, this is the reason why we had to invent phasers. That was a great question. So I have 3 more minutes, guys. Again, if you have, hi Aaron, how are you doing? Is it possible to overlay 2 movement effects? For instance, I have a so large circle that covers the whole stage, and then a smaller circle for all the fixtures that creates a spinning group that transfers the whole stage. I'm going to publish your question, so everyone sees it. Yes, this is possible through, again, or the way we can do it is with allow duplicates. So in this question, it's not completely implemented, but I can show you how this works. So you can select all the fixtures and you can create a large circle. So what I already created. Then what you can do is in your when you are creating parts, your part 1. So your part 0 can be the large circle, and in part 1, you create a relative smaller circle. Now, I know what you're thinking. This, you cannot have the same attribute again involved in the parts. So for this reason is why we have allow duplicates. The allow duplicates function will help you to have the same attribute again involved in one of its parts. But again, this is pure intention behind having allow duplicates. But again, this is at the moment not fully possible. Allow duplicate itself is working, but to have it integrated like it works in the phasers, this is not implemented. So, but yeah, this is what you should be keeping your eye on. Allow duplicate. So, but give this a try. Yeah, I can show you a quick example for allow duplicates. So if I select my fixtures and if I set it to full, and I create a simple queue, so I have this. And what I can do is I can select these fixtures and I can go to the next part and I can, or don't even have to use programmer parts. I can just select my fixtures and I can say 0 and say store Q1 part 1. And I can just on this. And I can just click on this one. So it then creates select it. It creates this part, and when I say allow duplicates, it allows me to have dimmer in queue in the main queue in part 0, let's say, and then also in part 1. Sorry, I think I missed one step. One important step that I need to mention at this point. So if I select my fixtures, I will recreate this once again. I will select my fixtures. I will say full, and I will store this over here. Before I start to use allow duplicates, I have to enable them first. So I'm going to say allow duplicates, yes. And then when I select this fixtures again, and when I set them to 0, at 0, and I say store Q1 part 1. So I have now, again, the main queue in which there is dimmer information, and the dimmer information is also in part queues. This was absolutely not possible in grandMA3. In fact, this is how we define the part queues in the help menu. But now that I have allow duplicates, I can see this in action. So if I set my some delay, say 3 seconds, and if I set the state of 1 second for the queues, and then you can see this, that it's coming on, and then it waits for 3 seconds and it goes off. All of it is all in one queue. So again, this is part of the allow duplicates. So this is moment working values. Keep an eye on it. It's a very small sprint to work along with the phasers, which is then you can create the circle phaser with an absolute value, and then you can create a small relative phaser that can do this spinning movement. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, there's some more questions. Where was this? AJ, yeah, I hope that answers your question. What we have here? Does recast also work on phasers? Yes, absolutely. I explained a basic concept of how recast works with the attributes, but of course it works on the phasers as well. And you can give this a try. Let me go through the questions if you have time. Oh, sorry, 12:03. Yes, you should do that. Okay, Franz, you asked a question. So when you have a color phaser with, let's say, 4 colors, like you just demonstrated, but you change the values of one of the color presets, will that be recasted through your phasers? Okay, by the way, this does not need recast, because recast is only when you introduce a new attribute. If I'm changing a value in the colors, I don't have to recast it, because it's going to reference the same preset, and the preset already has the same the attribute, which is color. Let me show you what I mean. By the way, guys, if you have any questions, since we don't have any more time now, but if you have any more questions, please send them an email, and we will discuss them in the next webinar. So I will answer this last question from Franz, because I think it's important that we don't misunderstand the function of recast, or we fully understand the concept of recast. So if I select this fixture, and if I go to laser and I say red, next green, 2, next step, I integrate. Next step, 2. Next step, I integrate cyan. So let's say we have a phaser like this, and let me store it in all presets. Oh, let's go one step back. Oops. Let me add some transition to make it more evident. And the phase as well. So let's say we have a phaser like this, and I'm going to store it over here. And if I were to use this in my playback, store over here. And let's say I want to change the value of, let's say I don't like cyan, I like magenta, for example. What I can do is, I can first apply this. I think at this point you can take the advantage of using single step. So when I go to single step, or when I switch the single step on, I can cycle through each step, and I can see what is the value. So I go to cyan and say, oh no, this is not what I want. At this point, magenta. So then I can take a look again. I've messed up my values. Let's try that once again. Step 1, 2, not sure why that stopped. Try this once again. So integrate green, integrate blue, and then integrate magenta. Let's see, let's take a look at that. Again, phase transition 0, phase 0 to 360, and then I can just update it. Store merge it. This is not what I needed, but this should. Yeah, but in the end, the concept is to explain the recast function. So like you see, when I trigger my executor, the color is automatically changed to magenta. But this is, like I said, recast is only needed when you introduce a new attribute. For example, if I were to add a position information inside this attribute, which is not existing before, that information will not be uploaded into the existing queues. So that is when you need a recast. Okay, guys, it's 12:07, 12:08. I have to end the webinar now. Thank you so much for everyone who has attended the webinar. Again, I would like to remind you that if you have any questions, please send an email to us at you can send it to luke.chikkala@mailighting.com. We'll type it over here, or you can send the email to your distributor and send them your questions and send any feedback that you have about this webinar, and we will take care of it in the next webinar. Absolutely. So once again, thank you so much for attending. I hope you guys are doing well and stay safe and stay at home, and we see you soon.